Well, good morning, everybody. First, I just want to say thank you to Josh and Kristen and the whole Delta Life team for having me out today just to hopefully inspire you and motivate you. Josh and Kristen, I just told them the other day, I don't think they realized how much they've impacted my life just from watching them and their rise. And when you choose to rise up and go to the next level, you never know who's watching. You think you're doing it for you, but there are people that are watching you and they're waiting for you to rise up. And so just because Josh and Kristen said, we're going to push past every barrier that we have, we're going to rise up and make a bigger impact, it spurred in me, it activated something in me that has changed the course of my life, and they didn't even know it. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you for saying yes to being franchise owners, to saying yes to impacting women's lives. So John Maxwell, he has a quote, and he said, if you think you're a leader and you turn around and no one's behind you following, you're just out taking a walk. But I want you to high five your neighbor today, because you guys are the franchise owners. You are the leaders. And so you're not just out taking a walk. You are leading. And congratulations for that. So I just want to tell you a little bit about my story and my journey. I grew up in the Midwest. I grew up in a pastor's home. I grew up what I considered to be really the perfect life. I was highly involved in my youth group, and I knew since I was in the third grade that there was a call on my life to impact people. I didn't know how that would happen, but I knew that I was called to make a difference in people's lives. So as a teenager, I was active in my youth group. And I went to Bible college, and I had told God, I prayed, and I said, I will just give my whole life. I'll go on the mission field. I don't care, whatever you want me to do, I'm saying yes. And I went to Bible college, met a fiery young preacher, and then that was that. So, but we started a church right after we got married, and we were in the ministry for over 23 years. We were impacting people's lives. We were the place to come and see how it's done. We were winning awards from the city for helping bring crime down. And so I thought that I was living my dream. But after 23 years, my now ex-husband made some choices that didn't include his family and didn't include the ministry. And that literally turned my world upside down. I went from living what I thought was the perfect life to now I was the first lady of the church. And I went from first lady of the church to divorced single mom. Never in my wildest dreams did I think that would happen. I went from never having worked outside the home or never having worked outside the ministry to having to find a way to take care of myself and my kids, and I ended up selling windows door to door. I went from a beautiful Texas ranch to living in an apartment on the floor, eating on the floor, sleeping on the floor, and playing Yahtzee on the floor with my kids. I went from wearing a Rolex with diamonds to standing in the food stamp line. In fact, this is a true story. I was standing in the food stamp line with my Rolex on. Now, let me explain before you judge me. I had never expected to be in that place. And when that happened, we lost everything. Foreclosure, bankruptcy, like everything just completely fell apart. And I had sold all my jewelry, but I had tried to sell my watch, and I knew that I wasn't going to get what it was worth. And so I held on to it for a little bit longer, and I had met some girls who were what I call professional singles. And I'm really thankful that I met them because they knew how to do this single mom thing. And they said, I was literally digging in the couch for quarters, and they said, this is what food stamps are for. Go get help. So I did, but I forgot that I still had my watch on. And so my friend called me, and I looked down and I saw it, and I threw it in my purse, thankfully, right before I got up to talk to the lady. And I got my food stamps. But about a month later, I just knew that there was somebody out there that would give me what it was worth. And so a month later, I walked into a store, and there was my friend who was working there. And he knew my story, and he went to the manager, and he said, you have to do the absolute best that you can do for her. And so he gave me the best deal that he could. I sold my watch, and that's how I bought Christmas for my kids that year. And so, just a little bit of history, a little bit of my story, and it'll all make sense in a few minutes why I'm telling you all of this. But, I just want to talk to you today that, you are the leaders of your organization. And the title of my message today is that leadership is not a title, it's a lifestyle. And just like John Maxwell said, sometimes you turn around and no one's following you. That doesn't disqualify you from being a leader. I had trained leaders, I had raised leaders, but I looked back at one point of my life and there was nobody following me anymore. But I had to decide that does not disqualify me from being a leader. I am going to lead myself. And as I began to just lead myself, then, after a while, I did look back and there were more people following me again. And it was pretty cool. But I had to really shift in my mindset and realize that, if no one else is following me, I'm still going to be a leader. And that's what I just want to talk to you about today. I want to leave you with a couple of principles from some of my lessons in leadership. So the first thing I want to tell you is that leaders inspire clarity. And this is so important for you to know going forward, that as you inspire clarity in the people that are following you, clarity actually inspires movement. See, you move in the direction of your vision. What you look at is where you're going, just like when you're driving the car. And, how you see yourself matters. How the women in your organization see themselves, it really does matter. So as you inspire clarity about vision, it will create a movement inside of them. And here's what I want to tell you. So one of the things that I'm kind of known for around here is I decided to write a book. And the book is a little bit of my story and my journey from tragedy to triumph. And I also I show how women have an opportunity, and men, to go through 5 stages of personal development to make their greatest impact. But I also show that the stages can be seen in a caterpillar going to a butterfly. So guys, I am going to talk about the butterfly, and I know there's quite a few men in the room today, but don't shut me down, because there's a lot of great information just about the human experience, even when we're talking about the butterfly for you men. So as I wrote the book, I was able to put my story in writing, and here's what I want to say to you, is that when you are talking to the ladies, the women who are following you, speak to their butterfly. Even if you can only see their caterpillar or their cocoon right now, speak to the butterfly within them, because this is so incredible. The caterpillar does not turn into a butterfly. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further. But the DNA of the DNA of the butterfly is in the caterpillar. And so that woman that you are working with, the women that you are inspiring, the women that you are motivating, she was not born to be a caterpillar. She was not born to be stuck in the cocoon. She was created to be a butterfly. And as you speak to her butterfly, it will inspire her to keep moving through the process. So when you inspire your followers to get clear about their vision, you won't have to tell them where to go. They'll just start moving. So the other thing you can inspire clarity about is authenticity. So like I said, the caterpillar doesn't turn into a butterfly, but the DNA of the butterfly is inside of her. When you help people answer the question, who am I? Why am I here? And what am I here to do? You won't have to tell them what to do. They'll just start doing it. And they'll do what they're good at. So as you inspire them toward their vision, as you inspire them toward their authenticity, then they will create their own movement and you won't have to drag them along. And how many of you who have been leaders have had to, feel like you've had to be the cheerleader and drag people along? That can be exhausting. And so as you inspire clarity, you'll create movement that will produce a flow in all of your lives. The other thing that leaders inspire is confidence. And confidence will inspire motivation. As I was studying confidence, I came across something so interesting. Amelia Earhart, who's heard of Amelia Earhart? Okay. She was the first woman to cross the transatlantic in the 1920s, and flying solo, actually. And so they asked her, what do you attribute your success to? And she said, I do attribute my success to my abilities. I'm good at what I do. But she said, but really, it was my confidence that got the job done. But confidence to Amelia Earhart was something very different. Confidence to Amelia Earhart was the willingness to go after her impossible and the belief in herself that she could do it. And if you don't take anything else away from this talk today, I want you to walk away with a new definition of confidence. That confidence is the willingness to go after your impossible. Each and every one of you, each and every one of the women that you inspire and you motivate and you lead, they have an impossible that was deposited on the inside of them. And it may have been covered up by layers and layers of stuff, but it's there. And as you begin to go after your impossible and take your organization to the next level, as you begin to go after your impossible and just believe that you can do it, you won't have to worry about motivation. The motivation it'll just be there. And so I want to encourage you to inspire confidence, but inspire confidence in a new way. Inspire people to go after their impossible. And the best way to know what the impossible is for that person is to do what Stacy talked about and get out there and network and to get out there and ask questions and dig as you get to know them. Find out what their impossible is. So I want you to also consider inspiring a judgment-free zone where self-compassion leads the way. As I work with women on a daily basis as a life coach, women tell me constantly that they beat themselves up and that they are their own worst enemy. Now, I've also talked to men who tell me the same thing. I thought this was a woman problem, but apparently it's not. So I talk to men and women that they beat themselves up on a daily basis and they are their own worst enemy. And I want you to think about the implications of that. Think about living in your own body and you are your own worst enemy. How can you possibly succeed? But yet we beat ourselves up every day. And so as you begin to inspire a judgment-free zone where self-compassion leads the way, be compassionate to yourself. I believe that we teach other people how to treat us by the way we treat ourselves. And as you begin to treat other people, as you begin to treat yourself with more self-compassion, you'll notice that people show up being more compassionate to you. And so this is so important. Create a culture where women can be their own best advocates and be allied with themselves and their surroundings. Can you imagine living a life where you're your own best advocate? that you don't need validation from the outside, that you don't need someone to pump you up, that you don't need someone to tell you you're doing a great job. Can you imagine if you just were your own best advocate and you were allied with your own, with yourself, with your surroundings? You know, how incredible. That's where you begin to create a life of miracles. You know, one of the things about the cocoon is it's lined with silk. There's a softness on the inside of the cocoon. And, you know, this whole journey that you're on as a business owner, this whole journey that the women you're speaking to and motivating and leading are on, it's a journey of transformation. We're transforming into the best version of who we were created to be. And inside of the cocoon is where the transformation happens. And that cocoon is lined with silk. There's a softness to it. And I want you to remember that picture, that when you are judging yourself harshly, that you are beating yourself up, or you find yourself just saying hateful things to yourself. Start to listen to yourself think. Start to listen to the words that are coming out of your mouth. I want you to remember this picture that the cocoon is lined with silk, and begin to create a culture that is filled with self-compassion. And I promise you, the women in your organization, when you create a judgment-free zone where people can go after their impossible, you won't have to pick them up when they fail. They'll just be motivated and they'll get out there and fail forward. Create a culture that promotes accuracy, not flawless. You know, women suffer from what I call the perfectionist propaganda. And I have also found that this is also not just a woman problem, it is also a man problem. That we have this something inside of us that makes us want to, we have to be perfect. And when you're going after perfect, you know, it makes you hesitate. You know, you don't take action if you can't have it perfect, right? But what I realized is that there are two definitions for the word perfect, and I love this. You know, I said earlier, if you only take one thing away, but I'm gonna retract that. If this is the only thing you take away, then I want you to take this away. That perfect has two meanings. Perfect means flawless, and that's usually the word that we think of when we are beating ourselves up over not being perfect, because we're going after flawless. But I want to tell you there is a second definition of perfect, and that is accuracy. As you inspire women, as you inspire yourself to be accurate to who you are, why you're here, and what you're here to do, then you will begin to, things will begin to shift inside of yourself and the women that you lead. When you create a culture of accuracy, they won't have to be motivated to go after bigger goals. They'll start going after their impossible. Can somebody say amen? Amen. I come from a long line of preachers, so sorry, I got to bring that in every now and then. I want to hear a good amen every now and then. So, not only do leaders inspire clarity, not only do they inspire confidence, but they also inspire courage. And when you inspire courage, it really inspires momentum. So, I want you to consider creating a culture where failure is celebrated. Now, some of you might be looking at me like deer caught in headlights and say, what are you talking about? But, you know, hey, I have worked out before. And, you know, I know that when you are lifting weights, you know, you have to work that muscle to failure. And it's in the failure that's when the muscles start to rip. And then they repair and they grow. And so failure is a really important part of the process. I talk to women every day who tell me that they are afraid of failure. And I don't think that's true. I don't think we're afraid of failure. Because what do we do every day? We don't measure up. We end up failing every day. That's how we see ourselves. And so I think we get comfortable with failure. But what I do think is I think we are afraid of success because we have defined success as the lack of failure. But success is not a lack of failure. Success is literally a pathway that is paved by one failure after another. Right? Come on, rip that muscle, let it heal. Thank you. And rip that muscle, let it heal, and then, it gets bigger. And so failure is a really important part of the process. And when you inspire courage for women and for yourselves, when you give yourself the okay to fail, then you begin to inspire a new level of courage. So remember when I told you about the caterpillar, that she doesn't turn into the butterfly? The DNA of the butterfly is literally encased within the caterpillar. And guess what happens? When that little caterpillar is in the cocoon, enzymes are released inside of the cocoon, and they literally break her down into nothingness. In fact, it turns her into a liquid form. So that caterpillar that encased the DNA of the butterfly had to be completely liquefied so the DNA could be reshaped and reformed. And sometimes we go through seasons in our life where we feel like our world gets turned upside down and life does not look like what it once did. And that's because the woman and the man who was created by fears, failures, and imperfections, but contains the DNA of greatness, that old encasement has to be literally liquefied and melted away so that who you were created to be can begin to be reshaped and reformed into the authenticity of who you were created to be. And so when everything around her turns into liquid and it looks at like nothingness, it looks and feels like failure. But it's not failure. She's been set up for a breakthrough. When you create a culture where failure is celebrated, you won't have to drag them along with you. They'll dig deep, they'll locate their own courage, and they'll get up and try again after failure, and they'll create their own momentum. How many of you would love a business where women are creating their own momentum? How much more effective could you be? Well, I want you to consider creating a culture where self-leadership is activated. Because like I said before, when, sometimes you look back and there's no one following you, you're the only one. You have to be the leader for yourself. And when you're trying to lead your followers somewhere that you're not willing to go, that's when it becomes manipulation. And that's why I want to encourage you that if you're going to inspire the people that are following you, then, you lead the way. Lead the way in your own life. I want you to consider being the leader of your own thoughts, patterns, and emotions. I want you to consider being the leader of your own past, present, and future. Because so many times, so much of our suffering is when we're either stuck in the past or we're fearing the future that hasn't even happened yet. And we're missing this moment, this present moment. But as you'll begin to be the leader of your own life and say, I'm not going to be led by the fears of my past, and I'm not going to be led by the fear of what might happen, but I'm just going to really stand in this moment and embrace the present. What are you missing that's right in front of you? What have you been asking for that's right in front of you? What have you been praying for that's literally right in front of you? So as you are the leader in your own life, and you create a culture where self-leadership is activated, then other people won't blame you for their lack of success. They'll have the courage to break their own barriers and create their own success. How awesome would that be if you didn't have to carry the weight of the blame for other people's success? Somebody, they sign up for a certain amount of sessions and they don't come, and then they blame you and they put a bad review. Right? Am I talking to somebody? But when you create this culture of self-leadership and inspire that in them, then they'll go after their own breakthroughs. They'll bust through their own barriers. Well, leaders also inspire commitment, and commitment inspires measurable success. As you create a culture of commitment to the whole process, that's where things will begin to happen. Because, you're taking women on a journey. They don't come into the gym 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, and see the kind of transformations that they're looking for, right? What did you say, Josh? You have to have, it's like 18 times is when then they're connected. And so, you have to inspire a commitment to the process. The process is hard. That's where we usually end up giving up. We get excited, we come to the conference, and you're like, yeah, I can do this. And you go home and you get in the daily grind, you get in the process, and then it's like, wah, wah, wah. Right? And so it's when you have to stay committed to the process. And that little caterpillar, she understands the process because the grave and the cocoon feel very much the same. They're both dark, lonely places of sometimes loneliness. But it depends on what's happening on the inside that makes all the difference in the world. If the transformation is taking place, it's your cocoon. If you're letting that overwhelm you and you're saying, I'm just so lonely, I can't handle this, then that's when it feels more like a grave. And so the caterpillar, this is so crazy. If you get the book, you'll read a little bit more about this, but this is one of my favorite parts about the butterfly. When the caterpillar goes into the cocoon and she is encased in the cocoon, in that dark place, she cannot excrete. She can't go to the bathroom. She is face to face with all of her own stuff. And when women come to see you, when you are in the middle of going to the next level in your business, you come face to face with all of your own stuff, right? I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I'm not capable. Who am I to deserve success? That's when you're face to face with all of your own, excuse my language, your own crap. But when you create a culture of commitment to the whole process, then they're not going to break their word to themselves, and you won't break your word to yourself. You'll stay committed to the process. And so they'll achieve their goals, and they'll keep their promises to themselves. Create a culture of action. One of my mottos to live by is decide, commit, and do. And I just want to give you a quick definition of these. Decide, the definition of decision is just isolating opportunities that set you up to be the most effective. So whenever you have a hard time making a decision, I want you to think about all of the possibilities and just write them out. And then you're just going to separate the ones that don't make you as effective, and you'll be left with the one that makes you the most effective. That's decision. Commit. A commitment is a pledge or a promise that compels you. And I want you to walk away today with a new commitment, with a new pledge and a promise that you make to yourself that compels you forward. When you create a culture of action, your followers won't be a liability, they'll be an asset. And lastly, leaders inspire celebration, and celebration inspires maximum impact. When you create a culture where they can run toward what they want instead of avoiding pain, then great things begin to happen. So here's what happens. As a human being, we only have 2 motivations. That's it. There are only 2 motivations why you do what you do. The first one is to avoid pain. But it's not even really avoiding pain. It could be just avoiding the perception of some pain that is there. The other reason that you do something, the other motivation, is that you're going toward pleasure. In other words, you're going after what you want. And I found in working with women that one of the biggest things that holds women back is that we don't ask for what we want. When you don't ask for what you want, then what do? You manipulate to get it. You cry, you pout, you shut down, you know? And so I inspire women to go after what you want. And men, go after what you want. And instead of not asking and then shutting down. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is about Queen Esther. And Queen Esther was this little orphan girl, and she was taken away and brought into to the king's quarters, and she was prepared, for over a year, and they did all kinds of beauty treatments on her, and she ended up being chosen to be the queen, the new queen. So here she is. She gets into the kingdom. She's living in the castle, and she did not make her heritage, her origin of heritage known. And so she found out that her people were about to be annihilated. And so she threw this big banquet for the king, and she was going to ask him for his help. And so she made this beautiful lunch for him. And now, I need you to picture this. She is wearing the royal garb. She's wearing the crown. And she presents this lunch to the king, and the king is like, I love you so much. Whatever you want, up to half the kingdom. I'll give you anything you want. And as the queen, she gets on the floor, and she's throwing a fit. And she's wailing, and she's crying. Instead of asking for what she wants, she's throwing a fit. And the king looks at her, and he extends his golden scepter, and he says, get up. And he says, now go write it the way you want it to look. And then he gave her his signet ring. And the signet ring sealed it so it could not be changed. And so I want to say to you today that, decide what you want, discover what you want, and then go after that. You don't have to use your feelings. You don't have to use your emotions to manipulate, to shut down. You can go after what you want. That is so much more powerful. When that little butterfly, when she has gone through the full process of transformation, remember a few minutes ago, I told you that while she was in the cocoon, she couldn't excrete? Well, she stays committed to the process, and she faces all of her own stuff. And she allows her own stuff to bring about the transformation inside of her. And she turns into this beautiful butterfly. And so she begins to break out of the cocoon. And she has to kick her way out. And it's very hard. She's kicking. And finally, she falls to the ground. She breaks out, and she falls to the ground in sheer exhaustion. But instinctively, she begins to unfold her wings, and they're wet, and they're heavy, and they're gooey. And she begins to flap her wings, and she flaps and flaps and flaps. And as she does, something incredible happens. All of the excretion that she was in the cocoon with, it gets shot back up into her body and into her wings and hardens. All of the crap that you've been through is what gives you the strength to fly.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. That fires me up right there. Because now there's a celebration, because everything you've been through, all the pain that you've been through, all the pushing that you've been through, all the hard work that you've been through, it all is for a purpose, and that's cause for celebration. When you create a culture of going after what you want instead of avoiding what you don't want, then they're not going to rely on you for a pat on the back. And you won't have to rely on other people for a pat on the back. You'll just be going after what you want. Create a culture that rewards the big wins and the small wins. And you all know this. Celebration, just like working out, it releases endorphins. Celebration changes your physiology and it strengthens your psychology. When you create a culture that rewards wins, you won't have to convince the people around you to perform. They'll just get out and create their own maximum impact. So I want to leave this with you today. I want you to know that hopefully you walk away from here inspired. Hopefully you walk away from here motivated, and you have a few more good tools that you can take back with you. But I want you to know that I would like to connect with you at a deeper level. And here's how I can help you in helping the women that you lead and your organization. First of all, I want to suggest that you get the book, because the book is waking things up inside of women. There are things inside of you that are waiting to be woken up. There are things inside of you that have been laying dormant inside of you, and I promise you this book will wake it up. I want to ask you, don't walk away from here without a book today. If there's a way, if you read it and you're inspired and it does what I've told you it's going to do, then if we can find a way to help you get those books to your women, then it'll do the same thing for them. I wrote the book, and I literally have women every day calling me and messaging me and saying, okay, I've woken up, I'm ready to rise, what do I do? As a result of that, I have created the Flutter. A flutter is a group of butterflies. I did not intend on becoming the butterfly lady, but it just happened. So I'm going to run with it. But the Flutter is a virtual empowerment center for women. And so we are enrolling. It is a membership site. It is a membership site for community coaching and activating your call, activating the call of the women that you work with. And so we are enrolling into that. It's a very, very low entry-level price right now because we've just launched. But we also have opportunities for partnership. And I can explain more about that with you one-on-one. But I want to encourage you that coaching is not therapy, and it's not counseling. Coaching is for the well woman who is ready to create a major shift in her life. And so this community, the Flutter, is going to be a daily infusion of that coaching, of that community, and then just activating your call so that you don't go home from here and back down, so that you don't stop. And then thirdly, the third way that I can help you and connect with you at a deeper level is that I am a certified transformational life coach, and I do have individual programs that I would love, if you are ready to create a major shift in your life, I would love to spend that one-on-one time with you to help you do it. Just like the women you work with, they need you as a coach to say, come on, you can do it. They need your accountability. I always say that you will only go where you're at today is a result of where your self-belief it currently is. So think about where you're at today, and it is a direct result of what your belief in yourself is currently. That might hurt to some, but it's true. And so if you want to go somewhere new, you have to locate your self-belief ceiling and raise the roof. Somebody raise the roof with me. All right, so that's what coaching is. So those are 3 ways that I can connect with you personally. And I'm going to be around all day. I'm going to be having dinner with you tonight. And so let's talk, let's visit, let's connect. And so here's what I want to say to you, that live leadership as a lifestyle, not just as a title. And I want to tell you that you have been summoned to soar. Come fly with me.